Well, we've had reaction both from NATO officials here in Brussels and also from NATO member countries. So Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, came out quite strongly against the suggestion, saying that the West is willing to do whatever it takes to defend Ukraine. However, the idea of sending boots on the ground from Western countries is not on the table. We had an even stronger reaction from German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who said not only that this is not the case, that this is not being considered, he also explicitly said that when the war broke out and the NATO countries decided to take this strong stance in supporting Ukraine, it was specifically agreed that they would not send boots on the ground. Now, Scholz, of course, is essentially disputing that this was discussed yesterday, and Macron never said it was discussed necessarily at yesterday's meeting in Paris. Oddly enough, this all started with some comments by the Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico, who is against the idea of sending troops either from his own country or anywhere else. He's very much on the Orban team of saying that you don't want to prolong the war by sending more troops. But he was saying other countries were talking about that. That's how this started getting traction. Then we had Macron's comments yesterday. But again, it's not clear what he meant by that. Does he mean that NATO would do this in a coordinated capacity, or that individual Western countries might start doing this, even surreptitiously, just like Russia did in Ukraine before their full-scale invasion, the so-called little green men that were unaffiliated but clearly Russian soldiers in eastern Ukraine. And so then the question is, if individual countries are thinking about doing this, what could Stoltenberg or Olaf Scholz do to stop them? Because it wouldn't be done in a coordinated day. There's still a lot of questions about these comments going around.
Dave, you mentioned how one after the other we've had these NATO member countries who've come out and said, no, we're not going to send troops on the ground to Ukraine. And this is a challenge for the military alliance, which up until now, since Russia's invasion began, has tried to show this united front.
Yeah, and this is part of an overall picture of questions about NATO's unity. Of course, we had those comments from Donald Trump suggesting that he would not defend a NATO country if it was attacked, and that he might even encourage Russia to invade a NATO country that wasn't spending 2% of its GDP on defense. Now, amid all of this bad news, we are having some good news for NATO. Just yesterday, we had the Hungarian parliament finally approve Sweden's accession bid to the alliance. Sweden, of course, had been historically neutral until Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Then both Sweden and Finland decided to end that non-aligned policy and join NATO. So that joining ceremony, the flag-raising ceremony here at NATO headquarters in Brussels, is expected to take place on Friday. But of course, it comes amid all of these questions, not just about NATO's unity in terms of America's commitment to NATO, but also whether everyone in NATO is on the same page in terms of the strategy for Ukraine.
Dave, thank you very much for that. Dave Keating reporting that for us from Brussels.